At the start of our PESO model series, we talked about why the PESO model certification was rebuilt for how people actually find information today. Before that, we went deep on the visibility engine, owned media as the proof-backed authority you control, earned media as the credibility you can't buy, and how the two work together to make you findable, not just present. Then we added in shared and paid media because even the strongest foundation won't help you if it stays put. Now comes the part where almost everyone falls apart, where every time someone asks me what the biggest mistake is that people make when they implement PESO, I say, running it as 4 separate tactics. A blog post here, a social post there, some earned media and boosted content thrown in too for good measure. And it's not your fault, it's mine. When PESO launched in 2014, it was just a list of tactics underneath each media type. But times have changed a lot since then. And now it's a fully functioning operating system that doesn't work if you just do the tactics. It has to be strategic, it has to be goals driven, and it has to be integrated. Integration is not a buzzword. It's the difference between activity and momentum. It's what turns PESO from a nice framework into an operating system you can run on a Monday morning when everything is on fire, Slack is screaming, and someone just asked if you can make it go viral by Thursday. On this week's Spin Sucks podcast episode, I'm going to show you how to connect owned, earned, shared, and paid media so the work compounds even when real life shows up.
If you're a communications pro who works hard, doesn't compromise quality, and gets the job done, welcome home. We'll share our tips, tricks, and stories, and together we will change the face of PR. Spin sucks, but we don't. With the Spin Sucks podcast, here's Gini Dietrich.
Welcome back to the Spin Sucks podcast. I'm Gini Dietrich. Before we get started, I have a little tidbit for you. Did you know that if you can't finish watching right now, you can subscribe to the audio version of this show? We're on all the platforms where you get your podcasts, including Spotify and Apple, or you can subscribe to our newsletter at spinsucks.com and get it in your inbox every Tuesday morning. When PESO is run as 4 separate tactics, it doesn't just feel messy. It is messy and it becomes crazy expensive, and not in the we should tighten the belt kind of way, in the we're doing a ton of work and still not seeing any results or momentum kind of way, which, by the way, is the fastest way to lose budget and trust inside your organization. Most people run PESO like this. The blog post gets published, social gets posted, someone lands a great piece of earned media, and paid boosts a few things along to help it out. Everyone is busy. Everyone can point to outputs. There is a lot of activity. And yet, nothing sticks. Nothing compounds. Nothing multiplies. You're moving all day. You're super duper busy. And somehow you end the week right where you started. The first cost to running PESO this way is duplication. When each media type operates like its own mini program, teams end up rebuilding the same thing over and over again. Another new message, another new angle, another new content brief, another quick slide to explain what we're doing and why. You can't see it in one place because it's spread across documents, channels, and people's brains, but your calendar definitely feels it. So does your budget, and so does your team's patience. Then comes confusion, which is duplication's mean cousin. Because once you have multiple versions of the story floating around, things stop lining up. The website says one thing, social says something slightly different, the earned coverage highlights an angle you forgot you pitched, your boss asks, wait, I thought we were focused on this. And suddenly you're not just managing the work, you're managing the interpretation of the work. Confusion slows decisions. It creates rework. It makes approvals drag, and it makes it harder for anyone, humans and machines, to understand what you actually stand for. Consistency is how people build trust. Consistency is what the LLMs crave. Inconsistency is how they start to doubt you, or worse, ignore you. And then there's the sneakiest cost to running PESO in silos. It's wasted spend. This is where paid is typically used as a panic button. Not because the team is careless, but because it's what happens when the system isn't connected. If the owned media isn't doing its job as the destination and the proof, earned isn't being captured and repurposed as credibility, and shared isn't distributing the story in a way that reinforces the same narrative, paid becomes the duct tape. Boost the post, promote the page, put some budget behind it so it performs. But paid can't fix a disconnected system. It can only make a disconnected system louder. The real issue with silos isn't that you're doing too little. It's that you're doing a lot and none of it is stacking. You're collecting tactics, but you're not creating momentum. Here's the good news though. Integration doesn't mean you have to do more. Please don't do more. It means you actually do less. A lot less. You're going to stop doing things that don't connect. Because PESO only works when the media types feed each other, not conceptually, not in a we're aligned kind of way, in a very literal, mechanical way where one output becomes the input for the next thing you do. That's what makes it an operating system. When PESO is integrated, owned media isn't content, it's the destination. It's where you build the full story, the proof, the context, and the language you want repeated. It's the thing everything else points back to, not the thing you publish and then immediately abandon like a New Year's resolution. Earned media then isn't a standalone win you celebrate for 40 hours and forget about. It's external validation that strengthens what you already said on owned. It becomes corroboration. It becomes credibility. It becomes the proof you can't manufacture and the proof you should never waste. Shared media is not a place where you brainstorm new messaging from scratch every day. Shared is distribution. It's where you carry the same core narrative into the world in smaller, more portable forms so people actually see it. And it's where you get feedback, questions, objections, confusion that tells you exactly what your owned media needs to do next. And paid is not step one. Paid is not, we need leads this month, so let's throw money at it. Paid is the accelerant you use once something is already working. It's how you scale distribution of proof that's already doing its job. That is how PESO becomes an operating system. Knowing how PESO becomes an operating system is one thing. Running it that way week after week is usually where the wheels come off because, real life. If the intersections are the engine, your operating rhythm is what keeps it from stalling the second real life shows up. This is where integration usually dies. Not because the strategy is wrong, not because your team is lazy, but because everything becomes reactive. Someone needs a post, someone needs a deck, someone needs a few talking points, a stakeholder wants a different angle, a sales team wants a new asset, and suddenly owned, earned, shared, and paid start operating like separate little emergency rooms, each one triaging whatever comes through the door. This is not an operating system. That is a group project with deadlines, and only one of you is doing the work for the entire group. You've all been there. A PESO operating system is a set of decisions you make on purpose in the same order consistently so the work stays connected even when the requests are chaotic. The system exists to answer a few questions that sound simple but change everything when you answer them every week. What is the owned media destination we're driving toward right now? This should be your website for sure, but not the homepage. It just should be a specific page that helps someone make a decision. What proof do we have or do we need to get to make that destination credible? This comes from earned credibility signals, not just media placements, but reviews, creator comments, testimonials, case studies, and more. What are we distributing this week that reinforces that same story? How are we amplifying the work we've done so it reaches the right audience at exactly the right time? And what are we not doing so we don't blow up the system with disconnected work? The last one, blowing what we're not doing so we don't blow up the system, is the difference between teams that do PESO and teams that run PESO. If your cadence doesn't produce decisions, your channels will produce noise. You'll keep shipping outputs, but you'll lose the connective tissue, the part that makes PESO compound. And when leadership asks what's working, you'll have plenty of things to point at and nothing that stacks. Integration is not additive. If you try to integrate by keeping everything you're already doing and then layering a system on top, you're going to hate your life and me by week 2. Integration only works when you remove what doesn't connect. That means you need a stop list. Every organization has a graveyard of shoulds that slowly eat your time. One-off posts, reactive assets, random boosts, frantic brainstorms that reinvent the messaging again, and quick turn requests that force you to choose speed over consistency. None of these things is inherently evil. They're just disconnected. Disconnected work is how PESO turns back into tactics. A stop list gives you permission to say, we're not doing that right now because it doesn't reinforce the system we're building. And yes, that can be uncomfortable at first, especially if you've been rewarded for being the person who can crank out anything on command. But the trade-off is that when you stop producing disconnected work, you start producing assets. You get to take that same narrative and deepen it rather than constantly replace it. You get to reuse proof instead of hunting for new angles. You get to build consistency that humans trust and AI can understand. You stop chasing momentum and you start creating it. Now, if you want to run PESO like an operating system, you need a way to actually see the system, not in your head, not across 5 documents, not inside Slack threads and meeting notes. You need a one-page integration map. This is what keeps everyone aligned without having to constantly align. It's not a content calendar. It's not a channel plan. It's a simple shared view that answers, what are we trying to create right now? Where is the owned media destination that holds the full story and proof? What credibility are we using to support it? How are we distributing through shared so people actually see it? When, if at all, does paid accelerate something that's already earning attention? When you have this map, integration stops being a philosophy and starts becoming a workflow. Instead of every media type inventing its own priorities, the map makes the priorities obvious. It gives you a way to evaluate ideas quickly and say, great, where does it go? It reduces the endless back and forth because everyone can see what you're reinforcing and why. It also prevents the classic trap of creating great work that never gets distributed or landing earned credibility that never gets anchored back to the place you control, your website. Most importantly, the map makes it harder for your team to drift back into silos by showing the connective tissue. It makes the intersection work, not the channel. And when leadership asks you what you're doing, you don't have to list tactics to sound productive. You can show them the system. You can show them the asset you're building. You can show them how this week's work connects to last week's work and why next week's work will be stronger because of it. It completely changes that conversation, and you will enjoy those conversations so much more. And next week, I'll show you how to use measurement to make it even more productive. So if this sounds like the kind of thing you've tried to do before and it turned into a mess of good intentions and inconsistent follow through, you're not alone. Same, me too. Knowing what integration is supposed to be is not the same as being able to run it. That is why we rebuilt the PESO model certification this year. Not to give you more tactics, not to give you more to do, not to hand you a prettier framework, but to teach you how to run PESO as an operating system with sequencing, standards, rhythm, and a system that doesn't collapse the second someone asks you to make it go viral by Thursday. In the certification, you don't just learn the concepts, you actually build it, the operating system for your own work, your own brand, your own organization, your own experts. So integration becomes how you work, not something you promise you'll do when you have time. Because I promise you, you're never going to have time. But you are going to have a system, or you are going to have silos, and only one of those things compounds. If you want to learn more about the PESO model and its certification, join us in the SpinSucks community. It's a great place to get advice, brainstorm ideas, and build real relationships with your peers. You can find us at spinsucks.com/community. That's spinsucks.com/community. And make sure you follow us on LinkedIn, TikTok, and Instagram. We're posting tips, how-tos, cheat sheets, and more every week. I'll see you next week. Bye.